The topic that I chose to research was the federal and state child labor laws, and I wanted to see how they had changed since the inception of our nation. I wanted to learn more about teenagers, and I wanted to learn more about where most teenagers are working and how peers impact their decisions to work. Additionally, I wanted to ask employers and ask how they benefit from having teenagers work for them, or if it benefits them, or if it benefits the teenagers more as well. It was important for me to learn how children were viewed and treated in prior generations prior to the child labor laws that were implemented. The laws of children working had changed dramatically since the inception of our nation. Children used to be viewed as servants and apprentices before the Industrial Revolution. The children worked long hours in miserable, unclean, and unsafe working conditions. The children that worked were unable to attend school, which created a cycle of poverty that was hard to break. The 19th century reformers and labor organizers tried to restrict the child labor laws and improve their working conditions, but it took the Great Depression to really change the practices of how child labor is viewed in our country. There are laws that govern the employment of minors. Depending on the state that the child lives, there are child labor laws that cover different types of industries. If the individual is under 18 years old, it is important for the employer to be in compliance with the federal and state youth labor laws to verify that they are and the minor are informed of what hours and they're permitted to work under the laws. If there is a time that the federal and the state laws convict, the employer must use the stricter law. The federal government has a minimum age requirement in the Fair Labor Standards Act for adolescents that are seeking employment and the limitations that they will have. Children under the age of 14 are not allowed to work unless it is under one of these exceptions. And some of those are if they are actors or performers, if they do newspaper delivery, working for their parents in non-hazardous occupations, and making wreaths as home workers or certain work in agriculture. Children may work limited hours and occupations when they are between the ages of 14 and 15. Children that are between the ages of 16 and 17 may not be employed in industries that the Department of Labor laws deems to be too hazardous. In the state of Utah, the minimum wage law requirements the employers to pay their employees for all the hours that they have worked, including meetings and trainings, and for their break periods, excluding their lunch breaks or 30 minutes or more. There are specific guidelines that the employers must follow, and those are: every employer must allow the opportunity for a meal period of not less than 30 minutes and not later than 5 hours after the beginning of a minor's employee's workday. If during the meal break, the employee cannot be completely relieved of all duties and permitted to leave the workstation or area, the meal period must be paid as time worked. At least a 10-minute paid rest period for each 4 hours or fraction thereof shall be provided for each minor employee. However, no minor employee shall be required to work over 3 consecutive hours within a 10-minute rest period. And there are some positive associations between the advantages of the family origin and the achievement in school with paid employment. The advantage: teenagers are more likely to hold better jobs outside of the typical fast food and related service industries. Many teens work in part-time jobs that are in the general labor market, where there is a lack of cheap and flexible workers. With these jobs, teens are considered supplemental employees for adults who are the prominent ones in the workplace. For example, teenagers may work as receptionists in offices and grocery stores, as cashiers, but the teens only make up a small majority of these positions. There are jobs where teens compromise the majority of employees in an industry. For example, teens seem to be the mainstay of the fast food industry. Almost 2/3 of adolescents work in retail, food prep, and personal service, such as daycare. And the majority of them, which is 41%, work in the food prep, which is mostly all part-time and low-paying positions. These positions are not technically skilled, but interpersonal skills and high energy are required to interact with these customers in the retail and restaurant business, and to handle working with young children in daycare and recreational facilities. These positions are typically below average pay and predominantly female in the workplace. Teenage jobs have many of the same characteristics that are often said to be women's jobs, which are part-time hours, needing higher energy, good people skills, and willing to work for lower pay. Peers impact adolescents in almost every area of their lives, which include taste in their music and clothing, to more serious topics as illicit drugs and sex. This social influence can be separated into two different situations. There are those that observe others, and there are those where they are the ones being observed. There are 3 models that explain the altered decision-making during the adolescent years, which are social motivation model, reward sensitivity model, and the distraction model. Social motivation stresses how important the development of the social brain is. Reward sensitivity and the distraction models both stress the relatively slow maturing of the cognitive control system. Adolescents have increased social motivation, and they demonstrate that by risky behavior or conforming to their peer group's behaviors are ways to obtain these social goals. Reward sensitivity says that the social influence has huge effects on their risk-taking because the reward position region of the brain that is associated with the processing rewards is more active in adolescents than in the adults. The distraction model suggests that the behavior changes are caused by the randomness in the decision process. I interviewed an assistant manager in the food industry. She stated that as an employer, she benefits of hiring teenagers are that they are usually more energetic, have a lot of positive energy that is important with customer service. As an employer, she also benefits because the minimum wage pay is usually enough for the income amount that a teenager requires. The teenagers benefit from the employment because the work hours accommodate and are flexible around their school schedule. The amount of money that they make usually feels like a large amount to them because in most cases this is their first time earning money, and it helps with a sense of independence to earn a paycheck. The child labor laws have greatly improved over what they used to be. Children aren't considered slaves or cheap labor anymore, and having to work long hours in unsafe working environments. They can now work alongside their friends and earn some spending money along the way.